Hi. Okay, so in regards to my three rules presentation, this is what I have. In Matthew 7, verses 7 through 12, Jesus gives a Sermon on the Mountain, and the sermon lays down the guidelines for Christian living that Jesus brought. He gives a description of what we as Christians were meant to be by communicating great ethical principles and how they affect the lives of those within the kingdom. The Sermon on the Mountain falls into the category of poetry because Jesus uses poetic devices to warn the citizens of the kingdom. Here, the author uses the literary form of repetition to construct and communicate this message. He uses the three worlds to indicate the desires that would be met. Ask, search, and knock, and it will be received. The three lines constitute synonyms, parallel. The trio of words makes assurances to those who ask. Search and knock is unconditional. Ask and it will be given. Search and you will find it. Knock and the door will be opened for you. The speaker uses two ironic rhetorical questions about the way that parents respond to requests by their children. These questions are made to be a comparison in the way that God treats humankind. Is there anyone among you who, if your child asks for bread, will you give him a stone? Or if the child asks for a fish, would you give him a snake? Matthew's matching pairs are bread and stone and fish and snake. Jesus tells us to go about our daily lives asking and searching and knocking. Ask for things. Expect to get everything that our heart desires. This is a grand exaggeration. In verses 1 through 6, he gives us a series of precautions to take if we want to live the way that Jesus would live. In verse 7, he teaches us that take action to get what you want. The other biblical passages with the same themes include Luke 11, verses 9 through 10, and the Thessalonian verses 1 through 4 and 94, 1 through 2. The passage concludes with the golden rule, which is, in everything that you do to others, treat them how you would want to be treated, for this is the law and the prophets. So in other words, in the light of God's goodness and faithfulness in giving good gifts to his children, so are we to do to others. In regards to the historical world elements, Jesus, regarding Matthew 7, verses 7 through 12, Jesus was part of the first century Judaism gospel writers. They wrote their stories more than 40 years after the death of Jesus Christ. And because of this, oral stories were handed down along with written fragments about Jesus. Jesus taught that people talked about, it wasn't everything that they said wasn't always clear. They're sayings that came from the church. These issues stimulated many searches through ancient documents for the real Jesus of Galilee. The bottom line is that we have Jesus with many faces, and despite the many faces, there is a firm evidence that Jesus was part of the Jewish prophet, and he lived in the Palestines. Let's see. In a humble peasant village among poverty and toil, Jesus was born. His birth and early training aligned him with the countless army of humble toilers, physical, mental, and the moral burdens that he sought were to take away from the weary soldiers. As far as contemporary elements, universal elements regarding Jesus were the ritual of the immersion of water, which is baptism. This is the root of the Jewish ceremonial process of washing away the sins. Baptism is not an obligation in the 20th century, but it's a common component of the bread and the fruit and the vine culture. This culture is associated with the Passover feast. So there's that. Let's see. Also, I wanted to add that according to Fee and Stewart, the Bible was a human side that is an encouragement to us. It is our challenge, and it is our reason that we need to interpret this. One of the most important aspects of the human side of the Bible is that in order to communicate his word to all human conditions, God chose us to use almost every available kind of communication: narrative history, genealogies, chronicles, laws, poetry, proverbs, everything. And so, in speaking through real people in a variety of circumstances over a 1500-year period, God's word was expressed in many forms. And so, in closing, I've learned a lot from the three worlds. I also want to add that I did realize that forgiveness was a big part of this, and I did enjoy that part of my reading. I hope you enjoy this video, and my name is Jada. Nice to meet you guys.